Good afternoon, guys. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us for a little bit this afternoon. Let's go ahead and get started, and folks will continue to trickle in here. Um, all right, so we got some cool stuff lined up for you today. A lot of stuff on the new features of 2020.3, the most recent update to desktop and prep. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. Any questions that come up throughout the presentations, pop those into the Q&A, and we'll answer those as quickly as possible. We have a couple of announcements to our team, and of course, Tableau conference we'll talk about a little bit as well. Before we get into all of that, I'm going to pass it over to Stephen. Stephen, you want to kind of give us an introduction of what our group's about and kind of what our community strives for?
All right, thank you, Tim. If this is your first time, just want to kind of go through the goals of our community here. Just like the Tableau community at large and here in our TUG, we are really focused around a few things. One, collaboration, so working together. Two, networking. So don't just use this group as something to watch, but also make time to connect with the people that you see in here. If someone asks a really interesting question, it's always a good time to connect with that person and talk through that. Last, we want to say spread the word and have fun. So if you enjoy what you see here, please tell your friends, tell anyone that you know, even if they're not comfortable or haven't used Tableau before. This is a group where we're committed to helping people learn and grow their skills in Tableau. And then, like I said, lastly, let's have some fun. This is fun information. Tableau is fun, and this is your community. So if you have any ideas of how we should change things to make it a little bit more fun or to increase the collaboration and networking that we have in here, please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of echo a couple of those points, right? I've been using Tableau for quite a while, and haven't been part of the larger Tableau community for that long, maybe about 1.5 to 2 years. One thing this community is helpful, and they're a lot of fun as well. If you've ever been to a Tableau conference, you'll be able to attest to kind of how fun this group is and how willing they are to help other folks, right? Especially newbies learning the tool. So. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you have feedback about sessions or things you'd like to see in this group. We really want to kind of tailor fit this to our users and what you guys want to see. So with that, I'm going to jump into the agenda here and see what's on tap for today. First things first, we're going to talk a little bit about Tableau conference. That is coming up in about 2 weeks-ish. I don't remember the exact amount of days, but that's happening very soon. It's reimagined to a virtual session this year. So we're going to talk about what to expect and how to get everything, how to get yourself registered and get your schedule lined up and all that. We're going to talk a little bit about Tableau Prep, some of the updates there. Tableau Prep's on a more advanced, I guess, release cycle. So their updates come a little bit quicker than the desktop updates, which are quarterly. So I want to talk a little bit about some of those, creating custom fiscal dates, grouping, and writing to a database, or some updates I'll talk about today. At that point, I'll pass it off to a new member of our team. We're going to talk about the new in clause, which has been much needed. Anyone who's written case statements in Tableau can attest to how much we've needed that in clause. After that, Joey will talk about some of the predictive modeling functions and calculations that were added in the most recent update. And then we'll pass it off to Brandi for some more rapid fire 2020.3 features. So before we get into all that, I have one more housekeeping item to kind of talk about. For those of you that have been around for a while, been with us for a few months, we've had this group for about 3 years now, know we've been looking to expand our team. The more diverse our team, the more content we can bring to you, right? The more skills and the more tips and techniques, these sort of things. So with that, I want you to introduce our new team member, Brandi Carpenter, comes to us from Allstate. Brandi, do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, one second here. You're on mute.
details, right? All right, so like
There
Tim
you
said,
go.
Brandi Carpenter. I work at Allstate as an analytics consultant / Tableau developer. So I've been using Tableau now for about almost 2.5 years. So by no means an expert, but I'm definitely learning a lot from the community and my peers. My favorite thing about Tableau is that it just allows me to explore data in a new way. It encourages creativity, and just the support of the community has been really great.
Awesome. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Brandi. Brandi presented at our CoTug we have in Boston a few months back, I believe. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. And we really liked kind of what she brought to the table. We really enjoyed her presentation, so we thought it was a perfect fit for her to join the team. So welcome, Brandi. Thanks for joining. All right. So first thing on the agenda we're going to talk about today is Tableau Conference. So we're all really sad we're not going to be able to meet in person. For those of you that have been to conference before, you know how much of a blast it is, to hang out with your data fan for, 3-4 days. And this year would have been in Vegas, but things happen. So what we're going to do this year is a virtual conference. It'll be October 6th, 7th, and 8th. It is completely free, so there's no reason, if you haven't registered, there's no reason not to. There's going to be quite a few sessions, and we'll take a look at those in just a second. So I'm going to swap over to my browser here. All right, can you guys, Stephen, Brandi, can you confirm you can see my Internet Explorer there, Chrome?
I do not see that.
No, yeah, we're still seeing the what is Tableau
Okay,
Conference.
1 second, it's paused. Let me fix that real quick.
Now we can see it.
Perfect. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So once you register for conference, and you can do so by going to the link you see, tc20.tableau.com. Once you're registered for conference, you'll see this landing page here. What this is going to lay out for you is the actual broadcast schedule for the 3 days of conference. It's all color-coded by topic area, references some of the keynotes that they'll be watching, and from there on out, there are 4 tracks or four channels, I guess would be the appropriate term, for different content and different sessions. One thing I want to make note of, just because I'm a personal fan, is Neil deGrasse Tyson's doing a keynote this year. I'm a super nerd, and I listen to his podcast, Star Talk, pretty religiously. So I'm a huge fan. I'm excited for his keynote, which will be on the 6th. I think recently announced John Legend will be doing a live concert somewhere on day 2. I believe this is it right here. Nope, Iron Biz. Here it is. So he'll be doing a virtual concert on day 3, rather. So that'd be something to tune in for as well. But like I said, register for conference, completely free. No reason not to attend this year. A lot of great content. If you have questions on kind of maybe what you should be watching, what to look out for, these sort of things, feel free to reach out to Joey or I. We've been collectively, I think Joey's been to a couple more than I have. We've been to quite a few, so we can provide some sort of insight to kind of the discussions and topics you might want to tune into based on your current skill level or where you're at with Tableau. So with that, I'm going to hop back to our slide deck. So the thing I wanted to present this month were some of the new updates to Prep. To do that, I'm actually going to open up Prep for you. And we're going to kind of do a quick live demo. These are, I'm going to show you 3 different new features, all pretty simple, all pretty quick, so nothing too terribly in depth. All right. Guess I should have had this open ahead of time. I'm going to use just the default Superstore workflow real quick. All right. So the first new feature is something that folks that use Alteryx will be familiar with. and that is grouping. So you can see this flow, the Superstore flow, pretty straightforward, but sometimes you have these big sections here, right, that can take up a lot of space. You want to reduce those to kind of clean up your view a little bit. What they've introduced in the newer versions of Prep is the ability to select those, right-click, and group. So now all those will be grouped into a single folder. You can move that whole flow around your screen. Right, like I said, that makes it easier on the eyes to clean up your flow a little bit. One thing I will make note of, you can see I have an alert in the top right here. The server I'm actually connected to right now doesn't support groupings. It's a version behind, actually. So if that's something you're going to do in your workflows, just be conscious that your server must support that if you publish that flow. All right, so that's the first one. The second one I want to share with you, and I'll actually do it in Clean Step 2, is the custom fiscal dates. So those of you that have been around Tableau for a while have probably run into this at some point. And honestly, this was one of the most frustrating things when I was first learning Tableau that I had to deal with. I worked in a financial services company at the time, and custom fiscal dates were always a sticking point, right? We rarely looked at things by calendar date. So how I'm going to show you that is what I'm going to do is I'm going to take order date in this case. And again, this is just Superstore. This could be sales date, what have you. I'm going to duplicate that field real quick. There it is. It's going to put it way over here for me, I believe. Yeah, I'm going to move it back to order date just so I can have them next to each other. There it is. All right, so order date 1 will be my custom fiscal date going forward. So in order to kind of turn these on or set them to whatever your custom fiscal date is, it's a simple click of the ellipses, convert dates, and you can go to custom fiscal year. Here you can determine the granularity at what that custom fiscal date will happen. Of course, week, month, quarter, year. Let's just do month, and we'll say our custom fiscal date starts in February. From here, you can hit convert date. And what will happen momentarily is every date in February. It's a terrible example. Let's see. Let me scroll down to a February date if I can find one. Let's take January, for example. So you see the January dates here are now listed as the last month of the year from my fiscal date order date. So when I first heard about fiscal dates in Prep, I got really excited. I was really pumped because I think that this alleviates a lot of pain points. Previously these are really complicated calculated fields that you have to list out, dozens of dates for. This helps, but I don't think it solves the problem yet. I think there's still some piece missing. It's great that we can assign a fiscal month, but there's a lot of times in my experience in my previous life, there's a lot of times where a fiscal month started on a 3rd and ended on a 27th, right? So I would like to see kind of that improvement as well, not just determining the fiscal month, but being able to determine exactly when in that month the fiscal month starts, right? So stay tuned. I hope they add that. But for now, that is how you create those custom fiscal dates. All right. So one last thing I want to share with you before I pass it off for our next topic, and that is writing to a database from Tableau Prep. What we're going to do is I'm actually going to add a step here, maybe an output step, and we'll take a look at the options that gives us. So previously we just had 2. We had the file option and we had the publish to data source option. So that would publish to Tableau server. This would be a CSV you could save locally. Now we can publish to a database table. And we have a few options here. As you can see, SQL Server, Redshift, Postgres, Oracle, Teradata. pretty common data sources or servers. What we're not going to do in this case, however, is because we don't have an actual public server to connect to, I'm going to kind of show you how it will work in a blog post I'm going to switch over to now. So what you do, of course, is select your server, put in your credentials, and I'm going to swap my screen here real quick and reference this blog post. So as you'll see here in this GIF, oh, actually, I might have it. I think I put it here. Sorry about that. What you'll see happening in this GIF, as soon as this loads, is once you select your server, you put in your credentials, you'll be prompted to select a table and what you want to do to that table. Of course, you can create one from scratch, you can append to a current existing table, or you can replace the table completely. So it'll replay here and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about there. With this, this published to server output step, there's also some options to do this incrementally. So if you have you know, dates or sales dates or order dates or what have you that you don't want to overwrite, you just want to add the new records as they come in. You can do that with this step, partnered with an incremental refresh as well. So with that, those were the Tableau Prep updates I wanted to share with you today. If there's any questions, go ahead and pop them into the Q&A, and I'll check those out kind of as we move forward here. But what I want to do now is I'm going to pass it off to our newest team member, Brandi, who is going to share with us the new in clause for Tableau Desktop and how that might make your case statements and things like that a little bit easier going forward. So Brandi, you good to share your screen?
Yep. Thank you, Tim.
Awesome. I will
Feel control.
stop sharing mine.
All right. Can y'all see my screen?
Yep, got you. You're good.
Great. All right. So the in function, it's a feature that many SQL users have been wanting for a while now. So if you are familiar with SQL, this may not need a whole lot of instruction to you, but just to kind of go over it for the basics for everyone else, we'll kind of look at the Tableau version, but basically it's a shorthand method to review for multiple conditions. So instead of having to use a bunch of, you know, or statements or else if or a long-winded case statement and doing that, you know, when this, then that over and over, you can just do a simple in statement. So this is what you'll see if you just, you know, look in the help field that you're all used to seeing in that calculation window. The in operator supports string, numeric, date, and Boolean data types. And just couldn't have said it better myself. On the Tableau help pages, the in operator combines the features of set interactions with the flexibility and speed of logical functions. So I have read before that that using a set within a calculation is not the most efficient way to go. And so if you're just, you know, if your dashboard's struggling or something, this might be a good solution to come back and fix. Let's see. So I'm going to step out of this and kind of walk through some. So a very basic one, just to kind of look at the Boolean logic. So, you know, if the state is in Texas, for example, toss out in a color, you see the true false result. True in that yellow, false in the teal. You can apply the same simple logic in a case statement. So case for state, when in Texas, then your criteria, and it applies using that same true false logic. And so applying that a step further into where you'd actually want to end up using it. So a bit of a longer list. So states that I personally visited. So if the state is in any of these options, then it'll be a true value. So then you can highlight kind of where I've been. I need to do more traveling, obviously. But for the label, same thing. If we want to do a case statement, so the case, so this is where, you know, instead of saying when Texas, then this value, when Florida, you know, it just really streamlines it. It makes makes that syntax a lot simpler to go through. So if you want to toss it on here, see the results, then I've labeled only the states that I have visited. So it's kind of a pretty basic example of just the Boolean true false kind of version. And then you can also use a date format. So here, just pulling this up. So just saying if the year of the order date is in, and you can just identify any criteria that you need. You can, type in the years, and then you can specify, then keep or then whatever the field name is. And I threw that on color so you can see the effect. So I kept these two, 2019, 2020. Notice this says null with our end function value. And then I just color coded the ones that I wanted to keep. You can also make it a little bit more dynamic. So if you don't want to come in with static values, you can change it to like a date function with a year of today, or, do any of those that you need to do to make it a little bit more automated for future reporting. And then a last example just of the numeric uses. So if the discount is in, and you could do multiple values, but just to keep it simple, multiple values is kind of the point, but for the simplicity of just seeing it here for us and how it works, 20%. So claims, you can tell what I do for a living, but rows where the discount was 20% is highlighted in true. And then, so that could be useful, if you want to see maybe sales. So these are the sum of sales for when the discount is 20%. So that's pretty much all I've got. There's plenty of uses, but it definitely makes life a lot easier. So you don't have to keep, just getting all that finger exercise at the keyboard, trying to do all the different possible cases. You can use a set or a combined field in the function as well. But this is just kind of a nice shortcut around having to, do those long case statements or create sets unnecessarily. So does anyone have any questions?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Brandi.
So real quick, this is a very cool feature for the fact that I write a lot of SQL, and so I use the end statement a lot. And so when I first started using Tableau, it was extremely frustrating for me because their version, they would always tell you, hey, create a set. And then I was like, okay, cool, but why not just have an end function? So for me, this is pretty cool. Also prevents me from having to write very long case statements. So I'm a big fan of this new feature.
Agreed. All right.
Absolutely, yeah. This will save a lot of time, especially with leveraging more parameter actions and these sort of things. Those case statements become a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
All
Well,
right.
I'll pass it to Joey.
So what I'll do, so I'm going to jump in real quick before we pass it to Joey. We did have a question I actually didn't see before, and that was from Daniel about some of the breakout sessions in conference. So I'm going to share my screen one more time. Let's see. All right, and I'm going to go to one sec. So while we don't have those traditional breakout sessions you may be used to from conferences past, there is still brain dates, and I should have mentioned these the first pass. These are actually my personal favorite part of conference. If you haven't attended a brain date, I strongly recommend it. This is the best place to kind of get one-on-one interactions with folks around a specific topic. So wait for this to load here. So how it works is someone will go out there and post a topic, hey, planning a virtual Tableau hackathon. That's the topic, and folks can join that group, up to 5 people total, and talk about that specific topic. I have seen some industry related ones. Katie, I thought I saw you were in here. Katie Wagner's hosting an HR analytics brain date. So if that's something you're interested in, that might be a good one to join. And always feel free to host your own, right? You can create your own by posting a new topic and open that up for folks to join you. So I wanted to put that out there. Brain dates are super great way to meet folks. I met a lot of awesome people at TC19 from brain dates, and I would strongly recommend it. So with that, now I will pass it off to Joey. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Joey, you there?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Sorry, I was trying to find the button.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're good.
All right, can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
Let's try this again. There we go. What about now?
Yes.
All right, good deal. Okay, guys, so I want to reiterate a few things that Tim hit on earlier and Steven. So we created this user group, I don't know, 3 years ago. And the first year it was just me. And then the second year, towards the end of the first year, I realized that, man, this is a lot of work. So fortunately, I met Tim and realized that Tim had a lot to bring to the table. And so the second year it was Tim and I. And then last October, last conference, when we were in Vegas, we actually had some discussions with the St. Paul user group. And Serena was telling us that what really works for them is having a committee. So this year, our goal was to expand our group and invite some individuals to help us, because it is a lot of work. And so fortunately, we were able to meet Steven, and then we met Brandi. And so I'm very excited to have them both on board. Both are very active on LinkedIn and social media as far as sharing their business. That's how we met them. So, I feel like my strongest, feature or, where I'm strongest at is the back end, doing the data wrangling, putting together a really nice data set, and then building just a, more of just a simple business dashboard. So it's nice to work with Steven and with Brandi, because I feel that they bring a lot of creativity to their business, and they think outside the box. So I'm glad to have them on board. So as part of running a user group, we try to, bring new features, to the community, because we're all sitting here, working 9 to 5, and we don't always get the opportunity to see what others are doing or how others using the group are using the tool. And so what we try to do is share these new features and demo these new features. And so this month I decided to do predictive modeling functions, since they're new in 2020.3. And just to preface everything, I have a background in information systems and finance. I'm not a very strong statistician when it comes to statistics. I realized how rusty I was when I was putting this together. So I just want to preface that I'm not by any means a trained statistician. Everything I learned, I Googled. So hopefully you guys can bear with me as I walk you through these functions. So predictive modeling functions in Tableau. So what are we talking about here? So previously, we all know that we are able to integrate advanced modeling features with R and with Python. But now I think what Tableau is trying to do is make life easier, right? Like I said, not everyone knows how to use R, not everyone knows how to use Python, but they're making analytics easier for everyone. So what they've done here is they've created a few functions that will help us create, some type of model. So basically that's what these functions do, right? So let's go ahead and proceed. So there are two different types of model. There's a model percentile and model quantile. Here's the fancy definition here. Good luck reading it and understanding it. If you're not familiar with it, same thing with the quantile over here. But basically, I think you guys have all heard of what percentile means, at least, right? So I know when we were growing up, taking up, standardized testings, they'd always say, hey, Joe, you're in the, 85th percentile or 90th percentile, which means, you're falling that top 15 or 10%, right? I may be exaggerating a bit. But anyways, so the example here is, a girl who's 46 inches tall is the 95th percentile for the height, which means she's at the very top. She's in the top 5%. 95% of the other individuals are going to be shorter than her. And then you can see here, the formula for model percentiles is target expression with a predictor expression, and then an example of what you could do in Superstore is, your sum of sales would be your target, and your predictor would be the count of orders. And we're going to demo these calculations in a little bit. Model quantile is very similar to the model percentile. The difference, the main difference here is when you do percentile, you're measuring from 0 to 1, and you're typically breaking that, most often you're breaking that up into, every 10th decimal, right? So you're talking about 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. You're breaking that up into 10, right? A tenths. With quintile, you're going to usually break that up into quarters, right? It's called quartile, but typically it's broken up into fours, or you can do deciles, which is broken up into 10, which is more like percentiles. But basically, one way you can use the model quantile in Tableau is to create an upper and a lower bound. And I'll show you how to create that too. And then, of course, you're going to get your percentile. So if you want to select anything between 0 and 1, that would be your percentile. And then again, your target expression and your predictor expression. So in this case, if you wanted to show just the trend line, the median in between whatever your scatter plot is, you would do 0.5. That's going to give pretty much the straight trend line. We'll demo that in a little bit. All right. So first of all, before we talk about model percentile or model quantile, what is percentile? So percentile is something we've been able to do in Tableau before 2020.3. We've just never really been able to model it, right? So for instance, what is percentile? It's the value below which a percentage of data falls. So if you have a group of 20 individuals, like over here, my bar chart, and you are the fourth tallest individual, so you'd be right here in that, out of that group, you would fall in the 80th percentile, right? 80% of the other individuals in the group are going to be shorter than you, right? I fall mainly probably around here somewhere, but if I was lucky enough to be, the fourth tallest person, then I would fall in the 80th percentile. So in the past, you would be able to create a distribution line, a reference line. So basically, you would just right-click. I already have one added here. You would right-click. I'm going to edit it, and basically, you have this distribution option up here, and then you could do an entire table, and then your options here: percentages, percentiles, quantiles, and standard deviation. If you do percentiles, you could either create a parameter to control it, make it a little bit more dynamic, or you can just select ones they already have here or enter in your own. I just selected 80 for this example. And then you can, create your, let me move this. The line's right here. And then you can actually gray anything below it or above it. Typically, individuals will gray stuff below that reference line. So that's that dotted line right here, right? There's also percentile calc in Tableau. I use it in a lot of cases if I'm doing an analysis and I want to remove, the bottom percentile, remove the top percentile from an analysis. If I have my data skewed and I have some outliers that are at the bottom 10% or the top 10%, I'll remove those from my analysis. So I've used percentile and ranked percentile quite often. It's pretty simple. Basically, where did my picture go? Well, lost my picture. We can actually bounce out of this and go back. So basically what that calculation is going to look like is, percentile, and I'm looking at height, and then I'm feeding a parameter. In this case, my parameter, because I wanted to make it more dynamic, I'm just saying, hey, let's give me a range between 0.1 and 1, or sorry, 0.1 and 0.9, step size, 0.1. And if I can move this, you can see that this over here is controlling that, this line right here. And then I also have a color function here that's saying, hey, if your calculated percentile, if your average height is greater than the percentile calc, then you're above that percentile, right? So just an easy way. So yeah, in the past we've been able to use reference lines for percentiles, or either use a calculation for percentiles. All right. So now what about quintiles? Quintiles very similar to the percentile reference line. Basically what you can do is come back in here and edit the reference line. And like I showed earlier, instead of selecting percentile, you can do quantiles, and then it automatically defaults to 4, which is a quartile. And then again, you can do 10, which will change it to a decile. In this case, I'll leave it at 4 just for this exercise. So now you can see that it breaks my population up into the top 25, the mid 25, the mid upper, the lower upper, and then the lower 25%. So that's how you would use a reference line for a quantile. And then I guess I'm going to assume my picture's gone on this one too, of course. So we can come back and show you how to create, this quantile calculation. It's basically just saying if my average height, and I had to create a percentile calc for 0.75, for each different grouping. So I have 0.75, 0.5, and 0.25. And basically it's saying if your average height is higher, then you're in the upper, or you're in the medium, or you're in the lower median, or the lower. That's basically how you could do percentile and quantile in the past, but it was nothing, you couldn't model it, right? It was just reference lines, or just straight lines, right? So what we're able to do now is we're able to do more of a model, right? So you can look at the definition here. Returns a probability of an unobserved value being less than or equal to the observed mark. Okay, so and so what the calculation is going to look like more. So let me take a step back. So basically, let's say for instance, you wanted to have a scatter plot, right? It's sum of sales versus sum of profit. So this is just a regular scatter plot with a trend line. Okay. Now with mono percentile here, what I can do is I can do mono percentile, the sum of profit, as my targeted, or someone comes to the house when I'm presenting. So I have my model percentile, my target function, and my predictor function here, right? And so what this is showing here is the quantile, the mark for sum of profit, adjusted for the sum of sales. You can see the trend line. Basically what this is saying is my model percentile is, the gray is going to be anything that's closest to my trend line here. Then we have anything going to be in my bottom 20% is going to be this darker orange, and then anything higher is going to be more of this blue, right? So this model percentile of 1, and then my model percentile of 0. So that's one easy way that you can sort of use this function. So again, the quantile of the mark for sum of profit adjusted for the sum of sales. All right. Any questions so far? I'm trying to make sure I didn't leave anything out. Okay. So let's proceed here. So initially, this is the initial view that we just showed, right? I had my trend line, and then anything that's closer to my trend line is going to be sort of in the middle of my percentile, my model percentile. Anything that's going to be closer to the more of the blue is going to be the upper portion, right, of that percentile. It's going to be further distanced away from my trend line. And the same thing here, you have the bottom, right? So we just showed this view. But basically another easy way to show this is, instead of plotting profit versus sales, we could actually plot profit versus model percentile. And what that's going to do is it's going to show you a little bit more, a better way of maybe showing the distribution of the profit, right? Because more you can see, it's going to be more like your legend scale here. These are going to be ones that are at your bottom 20%. Here's your middle 20%, and the more of the upper, right? So just another way of maybe pivoting, I guess, your view, right? Instead of doing profit with sales, you just do profit by the model you created, and you can sort of see that distribution a little bit more. All right. So that's just basically how you would use, create that model percentile calculation. So let's go ahead and take a look at Quantile real quick. So if we go to Quantile here, right? Basically, it's going to return a target value at a specified percentile based on other predictors, right? So and then if you look right below that, you can model, you can use the model to generate numeric predictions given your specified predictors and target percentile. So if you go back to our original scatter plot here and look at this trend line, right? This trend line here, in the past, I've never been able to create more of a trend line. I've never been able to create my own trend line. I'd always have to come here and go add right click here and add a trend line, right? So you just take that off, you can put it back. I've never been able to actually create my own trend line. I think a few people figured it out, but it was jumping through a bunch of hoops. Well, with the model quantile function now, you can actually create your own trend line. You can barely see it. There's a trend line on here, and on top of that is my model, the line I created using the function. So if I come here and I take off my trend line, you can see that the trend line goes away, but this model quantile pretty much just created that same trend line, right? And because I'm using a 0.5, I'm using the median quantile there. So basically, it's just saying the quantile of the mark for the sum of profit adjusted for the sum of sales. So that's one way to create a trend line, is using this model quantile. Now, what if I wanted to use a curved line that sort of, maybe it's a different type of model, but maybe it could be a better fit, right? So one easy way to do that is just to adjust this formula. And this is the view we're just looking at. You can adjust that. Whoops, looks like I'm out of sorts here. Sorry. Let's take a step back. Before we do that curve line, let's go ahead and, instead of doing our median here, the 0.5, we can create that upper band and that lower band. And so all we would do is create two calculations, one using 0.75. We could choose 0.8 or 0.2, but 0.75 and 0.25. And basically, you can create your own sort of bands here, right? If you remember, originally, our bands would go straight across. right? Because it was independent of sales. Now it's taking sales into account, and now you can actually have these, you can actually have the slope, right? Sort of like the slope of the scatter plot. Basically, it's my, you know, anything above this is going to be above the 75th percentile. And then here's your mid-range, and anything below would be below that 25 quantile there. So another way you can do, instead of just having one simple line, you can create two lines and show what's in between versus what's above and what's below. All right, if you want to take a look at this real quick, it's pretty simple. It's if you just use measure values and measure names, and if you, I'll put this out there, you can reverse engineer it. You just drag these two to my measure values and create your two lines here. So it's pretty simple how you could create that. All right, so I think now we can actually go on to a curve line. So what happens if you wanted to try a different type of model and just use a curve line instead? Basically, all you would do here is take your original calculation, and you would just, on the sum of sales, you would just square it. And that's it. That's all you're doing there, and it would create more of a curved line here, which could be a better fit for your model. It just depends, you know, what your data looks like, and you know, you have to mess with it. But again, you just have your 75th percent and your 25th percent here. All right, and then you know, if you wanted to calculate the distance from the model that you have here, you know, it's called a residual. It's fairly simple. We can just look at this calculation real quick. The distance is going to be my my target here, which is going to be sum of profit. So sum of profit versus the actual curved line, which is the model I created. And that's going to be called create your distance. And you can see here, I'm not sure why it's currency, but I guess we are talking currency. The distance is 4,800, right? So my quantile here is 4,100. My profit's 89.81 minus 41.72 gives you 48.09, which is the distance from this point, this actual point, to the model that we built. All right, so that's how you calculate the distance from the model. I don't know why people are knocking on my door. All right, so next, another way to sort of view this, instead of having a plot of profit versus sales, let's do profit versus distance, which is your residual, right? And then what this is going to do, is, if you're a statistician, you can make more sense of this, which I'm obviously not. But basically, things that hover closer, more towards the center here, your distance, it's going to mean that the model is a better fit for what you're trying to do. You know, your target expression with your predictor expressions is a better fit for the model is a better fit for your analysis. In this case, I'm probably not too sure because you have a bunch of outliers out here. But again, I'm not a statistician. Maybe someone can take a look at this and point us in the right direction. But basically, that's how you would determine. One way you could determine whether or not your model, the model you created, is you know, is a good predictor of what your analysis there. So, all right. So again, my statistics are very rusty, but it was a good opportunity for me to sort of dig back into it. Did a lot of research. I'll go ahead. And here on my thank you page, I wanted to put all my resources. So before I publish this, I'll go back and list out, you know, the different resources I used as part of this presentation. So appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Geez, a lot of stuff I didn't know either. A lot of, for me, first time hearing some of that functionality. So that was really great. We did have a question about will the workbook be available? And Joey, we'll put this up on our LinkedIn group, correct?
Yeah, so we have a Tableau public profile. We'll put it out there and make sure to put that link, you know, on our LinkedIn page. Which reminds me, if you guys aren't already part of our LinkedIn group, you know, Tim will talk about it at the end there, but at the end here. But make sure you guys take an opportunity and connect with us.
And there was one other question there in the Q&A. Joey, you want to take a look? Any degradation of process memory? Honestly, that one might be above my head. I don't know if you can be able to answer that. If we can't answer it live, we can swing back.
Yeah, so this, I think I understand what's going on here. So my original data set I was using was something I got from Snowflake. It was had to do with web sales. And when I did create the model quantile, the way you have to create this, and let me show you, take a step back, show you real quick. Let me show you how this is created, because I didn't do a very good job because of showing you this part. But when you create, you know, this median quantile line here, which is basically the same as your trend line, I think it's this one. You do your model quantile 0.5 because, you know, we're doing a median here, and then, you know, your sum of profit and your sum of sales, right? Well, if I take this off, show you how I created this. Remember, these are table calcs, right? So table calcs, you notice how I drag this over and this is blank. Because in this case, we're looking at our customers, right? Our customers' profit versus their sales, okay? And so what you have to do for any table calc is you got to make sure your compute using is correct, all right? And did I, give me one second. Oh, up here, I have to make sure my compute using is right. And since we have customer name on our detail, I've got to select customer name. And then a little bit after this, we can do a little bit more formatting. I think what I want to do is make this a line and then take this off color. And then I can come in here, right? And then I can do a dual access. I'm gonna synchronize it. And then I don't need to show this anymore. And that's basically it. So I was doing this with a much bigger data set. And when you actually compute using whatever you've got on your detail, yes, if you're using an extremely large data set, it will blow up your workbook. I think I had like 3 million records. And so I was actually just dragging like 100,000 records to detail, but it changed those 100,000 into like, you know, 23 million. And yeah, it blew it up. So long answer for an easy question. All right, Tim.
All right. Yeah. So if there are no other questions, what we're going to do is pass it back over to Brandi. She's going to give us a few more 2020.3 kind of features, and we'll go from there. Brandi, you want to go ahead and take it over?
Sounds good. Okay, so this will be kind of like a lightning round, like I mentioned, just a few quick and easy ones that hopefully are very useful to everyone. So here I've got, this was actually just perfect timing. My organization was in the middle of updating from 2020.1 to .3, so I was able to get a couple of screenshots for comparison. We skipped .2, so you'll have to bear with me on that one. But here you can see, you know, the older version .1. You could search, but it wasn't just like readily, you know, you kind of know about it and find it. Whereas this newer one, the search, I think that actually rolled out in 2020.2 though, but search is available there. But this filter feature is new, so I'm going to dive into that. So if you just click on that filter button, you can filter to the type of item it is. So calculation, which this is really great. In my organization, actually stole someone else's hack of putting this C dot in front of all of my calculations before, because my old hack was typing in C dot and you would get your any calculations that you labeled like that, but now I don't have to have silly names anymore. I can just filter it to calculation, so that's great. And then just be sure you clear it out before the next selection, because otherwise you'll just end up doubling a bunch of things that throw it off. So you can filter to dimensions and scroll through all of those, clear that out, measures, comments. And so that's a pretty handy little thing. You know, it's nice whenever you start getting in 40 calculations deep into those massive workbooks and it's getting impossible to keep organized. That's a really great trick. And then beyond that, there were some upgrades to background maps. I don't know how much anyone else uses those, but this is really nice. Before, so this is kind of the before screenshot of the 2020.1 software. If you wanted to make any changes and customization to your map using Mapbox, or I think the other one's WMS. I've never used that one before myself, but you would just go up here to the map menu, background maps, then drop down to manage maps. Click that, then you would get a pop-up, and there you had to go to the add window, add a Mapbox map or the other server. And from there you get another pop-up window where you'd have to enter in this information and hope that you understood what it was asking for. So it was kind of opaque and not super simple if it required a kind of someone else walking you through it for the first time. But now they've integrated it nicely. So all you have to do is go to map, background maps, and here it is, just already integrated within there for you. And so that's just a really nice feature. And it kind of, if you click on add Mapbox map, instead of having to have all those, like understanding your token, for example, or all those different things, you just add in, you know, give it a name, give it the URL that Mapbox provides you whenever you design your maps. That's a really nice feature. If you guys aren't familiar with Mapbox, Tableau has some help pages on it, but would highly recommend Johnny Walker's work. So that's his Twitter handle if y'all want to go check out some of that. He's got some pro Mapbox out there, Mapbox tips. And then beyond that, I thought we'd walk through some of the new exporting features. And so I'll show you how to add in the buttons here, and then we'll go to the server version. One thing that's kind of odd, just in this latest update on my PC, it doesn't do this in my personal one using the Tableau public free version of the software, but my desktop version does on this laptop. It grays out this button, but it still works on server fine, so I'm not really gonna worry about it too much. But these features are pretty nice. Instead of having to be on the server and having your user understand how to use Tableau server, because it's, you know, maybe not obvious, or they're just not as familiar with it, you can integrate these features on your dashboard. And so I'm just gonna do floating to make my life easier right now in front of you guys. But this down here in the lower left corner, you've got this download option. So I'm gonna grab that object onto my dashboard, and then defaults to PDF. And that was there, I think, in 2020.1 even. But so some of y'all may already be aware of this, but just in case you're not, you can edit this button and customize it. So you can do a text button or an image button. And then for the text, you know, you can enter in, you can customize your text that shows if you want, you can customize the font. There's the button border and the button background. And then of course the tooltip features, so if you want to label it, click to download PDF or any other details they might want to know. But right here, if you go at the top, you can choose which type of download you want to add. So defaults to PDF, but you can also do a crosstab, an image, PDF, PowerPoint. And so, you know, if you want to do an image, let's say, but this is what I did on this top right one here. You can do export to image, and then you can choose the image button style, and then you just go to choose. And from there you have your files, and you can just pick whatever icon you want and hit OK. And then, so that's what I did on this Excel one. So export to crosstab, and then I made an image button, and I just downloaded that Excel icon from flaticon.com. And yeah, you could add some tooltip text and all of that. And so then we're gonna go to server real quick. Okay, so this is what it looks like actually published. So it's no longer got that grayed out issue. but you can click on that button. No, we got to reload because it took too long. Click on the button, get the little pop-up, and you can choose, see whichever chart you're trying to download. So if you don't need to use the map or this sales or the profit worksheets, you can just select whichever one of those. So choose either Excel or CSV. I'm not going to download it live. I already cheated and did that beforehand because I didn't want to have to make y'all wait. So this is how it formats if you download the Excel version. It keeps kind of a visual similar to what was on the chart. And so, you've got like the merged cells here. Kind of expand that a little bit. The merged cell name there as well. But any Excel users know that's not exactly the funnest thing to deal with in Excel. So this is how the CSV turns out. And as you can see, it fills in all those cells. So you don't have to go through and unmerge and copy it down or anything like that. It just carries it through nicely. And then, and then the download image that we had selected for, it just automatically starts to download and you'll see it pop up in your browser. And then in any filter selections you make. So if I were to choose Texas because I'm biased and check out what's going on with binders, you can download this view. So this is pretty handy if, if you've got leaders that just insist they don't have time to deal with the dashboard, just send them a picture. This is kind of what you can do to just kind of cut to the chase that they need to see. So that was the original one we downloaded. And the filtered. It's a nice way to make it a little bit cleaner than having to trust that your user remembers how to use the buttons at the top that are on the legitimate, or the good, the work server, we should say. Does anyone have any questions?
Doesn't look like any questions yet, but yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them into the Q&A. A lot of great additions from Tableau. Some of these aren't groundbreaking, but they do make life easier. Some of these are highly requested, things like some of the exporting options. I know a lot of folks like to export to PowerPoint or Excel or these sort of things. So whenever we can make life easier for the end user, it's always a good win. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. All right. So before we wrap up, I know we're running a little short on time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring Stephen back in for a second, and we're going to talk about a project we had, maybe about a month ago, called the Visitor Studio. Our tip of the month this month was cycling through dimension filters, which is one of the episodes we did in the Visitor Studio, and Stephen was a part of that Visitor Studio as well, or one of those. But so what I want to do, instead of actually walking through the tip of the month, I want to, because we're short on time, I want to point folks to our YouTube page. We have a couple episodes up there now. The first was with Stephen, where he shared some of his background and some of his design techniques and tips. The second episode was with Lindsay Betzendahl, who is a Tableau Zen master. I believe she's an ambassador as well, if I remember right. And she shares some of the techniques on how to cycle through dimension filters. If you're not interested in some of this stuff, it's about halfway through that episode. So I'd recommend you go out there and watch it. But like I said, I want to bring Stephen back in to kind of talk about that initiative a little bit, if you don't mind. Just kind of what your experience was, Stephen, what you think about it, and kind of how you see it adapting going forward.
How I see the Visitor Studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing me in, Tim. It was awesome being a part of the Visitor Studio. I think that there's a ton of blog posts when it comes to Tableau knowledge, and it's one of those things, especially for me when I started, I was like, where do I go? Where do I find these things? And how do I actually get to it? Because it's one thing to actually see things in a step-by-step process and say a written format, but it's another to hear someone talk through their mental process, talk through the way that they came about, not only the way that they thought through making their viz, but also the small tips and techniques that they use to make it more interactive or more engaging. In the Tableau community, especially on Twitter, a lot of people are always finding out new tips and techniques and new tricks. And our Zen masters especially have all these things that are kind of like hidden in their mind. Even if they were to go through and write down every single thing they know, it doesn't necessarily impart the information to you. So when we think about the Visitor Studio and the initiative that we're trying to do with that is, one, to actually break those into the step-by-step, show you how we're going through those things, how we thought through those things, and how we came about using those tips, and for some other examples of how those tips can be used in other vizzes. Tableau is unique in that as you continue to build your toolkit, your ability to create more creative, more useful, and more practical visualizations, not just in a business context, but in a personal context, if you're into that, it increases exponentially. So I think Visitors Studio is a good step towards that. And if you guys have ever seen things like, you know, I think it's called the Actor Studio, similar to that, as well as, and I like to think of it in a way kind of like Chef's Table, and that you're taking someone who's created something that has been identified as good, hearing how they break into it, hearing how their thought process is, and then learning a little bit how they make it, make the dish, so to speak. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the intention behind it, and it's funny you mentioned that the name was a little play on the Actor Studio. The intention behind the initiative was to share those tips and tricks, things you normally read in the blog, to share those kind of in a visual way with the creator of that viz, often kind of walking through the steps. We thought, everyone learns a little differently. There might be a market or interest for that sort of thing. So for this month's tip of the month, go out and check those two Visitor Studios out. So there's some great content in there. And I think that's all we had for this month. Stephen, Brandi, any kind of final thoughts before we sign off for the day here?
No, I'm good. I think it's a good session.
All right.
Nothing for me, and we'll see you guys next month.
Absolutely. On the screen, our LinkedIn group, our Twitter handle. Follow us there, and you get the latest updates on any of our events. And we hope to see you guys next month. Thank you.